Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. Many people who are interested in keeping a boa but don't have a lot of space might be attracted to the dwarf boas like this one. Today I'm going to talk all about these great miniature boa constrictors and show you guys some examples of the different types. And I actually have 3 different types of dwarf boa babies available that will be available quite soon, born this year. I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys about which I recommend. So today I'm going to show you all 3 of them, give you some of the pros and cons of each, and hopefully you'll be able to make a decision about what type of dwarf boa to add to your collection. I'm also going to show you a 4th type of boa that's not exactly a dwarf, but be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video. You won't want to miss out on this one. So first of all, I've been really super busy lately. You may have noticed I haven't been making that many videos. I just have so many baby boas from a very productive breeding season that I have to spend most of my spare time just caring for them, feeding them, cleaning up after them, etc. But I'm getting really close to the end of the breeding season. I haven't had a litter in quite some time. I have one more gravid female who hopefully will deliver any day now. But that's going to be it for 2024. But it's been quite a breeding season. Got lots and lots of great baby boas. Most of them will be available quite soon. I'm getting them feeding and established. I need to take pictures of them. But if you check out my Flickr page, the link is below the video description. This is where I put all of the available baby boas. So you can go there, you can see what I have available right now. But in the next few weeks I'll be adding quite a few more litters, including the 3 types of dwarf boa I'm going to discuss in today's video. Okay, so without further ado, the dwarf boas are great because most of these animals get to adult size of about 4 to 5 feet long. They can be kept in a 4-foot snake cage or even one of the larger tubs in a rack system like these Vision Boa tubs behind me. And for someone that wants all of the behaviors of a boa constrictor but doesn't have quite the same amount of space, these dwarf boas are great for people who want the full-bodied boa constrictor experience in a more manageable pint-sized package. And so the first of these types of dwarf boa I'm going to show you, or dwarf boa constrictor I should say, is the Tarahumara mountain boa like this one. And these are arguably the smallest of the locality boas that are available in captivity. The adults get to be about 3.5 to 4.5 feet. This is a full-grown female, so this is about as big as they get. And these are a great boa, definitely one of my favorites. They're actually classified as the species Boa sigma rather than Boa constrictor or Boa imperator. So they're a member of the Mexican Pacific boa, is the official name of the species Boa sigma. And the Tarahumara mountain boas live in the Tarahumara Mountains of northwest Mexico, adjacent to the Sonoran Desert. They actually get within about 100 miles or so of the U.S. border. So it's probably the most northerly ranging type of the boa constrictor group. And these animals get anywhere from about 3.5 to 4.5 feet. The males can be a little bit smaller, females a little larger. And they're just such great animals to work with. They're really enjoyable to handle. They tend to be quite docile, quite handleable. A lot of people are a little confused because as babies and even wild-caught animals, they'll be very hissy because the natural instincts of these animals is to hiss and bluff, but they almost never bite. They'll just kind of hiss at you, but it's really nothing to worry about. And typically they stop with this hissing behavior, after you handle them a few times. You can see this one is really mellow. But what I like about these animals is you can take them out and they interact with the handler, but they don't try to escape. They're pretty chill. But they do move around, so it's a great handling experience to handle one of these Tarahumara mountain dwarf boas. They hold on, but they don't squeeze too tight either. So great size boa, for someone that just wants a pet, they can take out and handle and enjoy its company. Here's another example of the Tarahumara mountain dwarf boa. This is actually a male, and this is actually the father of the babies that I had this year. You can see he's even smaller than the female. I'd say maybe 4 feet, but quite a small animal, no bigger than a corn snake or a king snake, something like that. So anybody that can keep a colibri can keep a boa. And you can see the coloration of these Tarahumara boas tends to be kind of darker, a lot of browns and caramel and chocolatey colors, but they also have a lot of pink and even some green and blue overtones to their scales. They typically have a really nice iridescence as well. So they're not just a enjoyable boa to handle, but they're a beautiful boa to look at. And I can't recommend more highly the Tarahumara Mountain Dwarf Boa, a great dwarf boa for someone who wants a smaller boa. The next two dwarf boa types are called Key Boas, spelled C-A-Y. Some people pronounce it K. I think technically it's Key. But these two boas come from the small Key Islands off of the coast of Belize. And so it's thought that at some point, probably many thousands of years ago, a few boas made it to these islands. Maybe they were washed ashore to the island during a storm on some floating debris or something like that. But the boas managed to establish a breeding population on this island. These small islands don't have a lot of food resources, so there's a lot of evolutionary pressure for the boas to adapt to a smaller size, and that's what appears to have happened. And so the first of these is called the Craw K Boa. This is an example of a Craw K Boa. These animals are not that much bigger than the Tarahumara. Adults are in the 4 to 5 foot range. This is a 7-year-old female, so she's about 4.5 feet or so. And she's a proven breeder. She bred for the first time last year. She had the year off this year, but she'll probably go into the breeding rotation for 2025. And so you can see the overall coloration of these Craw K Boas is this light, kind of silvery gray with darker markings. And if you look closely, many of them, like this one, have a lot of pink overtones in their scales as well. But the Craw K Boa generally is a little bit more muscular feeling than the Tarahumara. They tend to hold on a little tighter. So more of like if you're looking for a more muscular boa. I would say that overall they're maybe a little bit more flattened laterally, whereas maybe the Tarahumara are a little bit rounder. These Craw K Boas are actually the species Boa imperator, similar to a Central American boa. And but overall, really cool looking boa. They are enjoyable to handle. They're not aggressive. Sometimes they can be a little bit hissy, particularly when they're still young. But all of my adults are quite mellow and they've never struck at me or anything like that. I do have a few holdbacks that are a few years ago that are a little bit hissy still. I know I don't really handle them all that much, but they do kind of hiss at me when I feed them. The Craw K Boas will either have regularly defined saddles like this one, or some of them also have quite a bit of striping. So they might have saddles covering 2/3 or so of their body, and then they might have striping towards the tail or something like that. I also see quite a few that have these aberrant patterns as well. And typically in my litters, I get a combination of ones with the regular saddles, ones with some striping, and ones with kind of aberrant patterns. So if you're looking for a specific pattern, you can look at a whole litter and maybe pick out the one that has the pattern you like. But overall, they're all really great chill pets. They don't take up a lot of space. Enjoyable to handle and interact with. I really like these Craw K Dwarf Boas. One more type of dwarf boa. This is also a Key Boa from a small island off the coast of Belize called Craw K, and this is the Craw K Boa. And so superficially, it's somewhat similar to the Craw K Boa. It has kind of an overall grayish coloration, but the color is definitely several shades darker than the Craw K Boa. And the other difference is that the pattern tends to be more uniform. These boas will typically have uniform saddles, and I haven't seen any with striping or aberrancies. They also tend to be a little bit thicker and more robust than the Craw K Boa. You can see this one is holding on quite strongly. Of the three dwarf boas I've shown you, I would say that the Craw Ks overall have the most muscular feeling to them. They hold on a little tighter and they're a little bit thicker for the same body length. But the size is about the same as the Craw K, about 4 to 5 feet or so. This is a adult male. This guy is about 8 years old. proven breeder. He's the father of the litter this year, which is his second litter. And the baby Craw K will be available in about a month or so once they're established and ready to go. When I was growing up my locality boa collection, I had the Craw K Boas, and I wasn't planning on getting any Craw K Boas because of, the pictures I had seen, they all look pretty similar. And I didn't have space for everything, so I figured, well, I'll get something a little bit more different. But a good buddy of mine was getting out of Boas about 7 or 8 years ago. And I ended up getting a lot of his Boas, adding them to my collection. And he had these Craw K Boas, and at first I wasn't really that interested in them, but he said, well, you really should take these guys. They're great Boa to work with. And I'm really happy that I acquired them, because the more I work with them, the more I saw how different they were from the Craw K Boas. Definitely more robust and thick. The appearance is different, but just another great type of dwarf boa to work with. And what's really enjoyable about collecting these dwarf boas and locality boas in general is you can learn a lot about the evolutionary relationships between different types of boas. And if you look at a map of Central America, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of islands in the Caribbean, and many of these islands have an associated population of boas that has been evolving there in isolation for many thousands of years. And we have a few of them in captivity, like the cocker and Craw K Boas and other island boas like Pearl Island Boas, Corn Island Boas, Hog Island Boas, etc. There's probably lots of other ones that haven't yet been described, and unfortunately they'll probably never be available in captivity to boa hobbyists. But we're lucky to have the forms that we do have. And if you're interested in the biology of these boas, I would definitely recommend you check out the work of Dr. Scott Boback. Dr. Boback is a herpetologist working on different types of boas. It's one of his specialties. And he's written a lot of papers and done studies on the evolutionary relationships between the mainland boas, like the mainland Belize boa, and the island boas that have evolved from that mainland population. So very fascinating reading, and another benefit to keeping these dwarf boas. Now that we've seen the 3 types of dwarf boa that I have available this year, I'm going to try to answer the question, which one is the best for you? Well, there's no easy answer to that. I would say the answer is all of the above, and I don't think you can really go wrong with any of these types of boas if you're looking for a great smaller boa pet. It really comes down to personal preference. Which one just strikes you as the most attractive in terms of the coloration or the behavior or anything like that. But again, you really can't go wrong with any of them. I would recommend if you like one type, you might want to try another one. No one can get enough of these great little mini dwarf boas. And I certainly enjoy having the Craw, Cocker, and Tarahumara mountain boas in my collection. Thought I'd end the video by showing you another type of really cool locality boa. And this isn't a dwarf boa, although it is an island boa. This is the Pearl Island Boa, known as Boa Imperator sabogae. So a different subspecies of boa. It was formerly known as Boa Constrictor sabogae before the Boa Constrictor and Boa Imperator were split into 2 species. And in fact, if you go back 60, 70 years, it was actually known as Epicrates sabogae in the genus Epicrates, along with the rainbow boas, which tells you a little bit about how different it is from the other types of boa constrictor. I would consider this to be the most divergent type of the boa constrictor group. If you look at the body of these animals, they have a very elongated body, which is built for life in the trees. The head shape is also very distinctive, with this long, flat head with flared nostrils and really big, beautiful golden or reddish eyes. So really a quite breathtaking boa to look at. You can see the coloration overall is kind of hypomelanistic, this very light coloration. A lot of white scales, a lot of beautiful iridescence, and mostly patternless. But these are a great type of boa to work with. Not a lot of people know about these. They're kind of a boa that's, you don't hear a lot about. It's one of my favorite types of locality boa. I've been, trying to promote them for quite a while now, since so many people have not heard of them. And there are a dedicated group of people who keep these animals who really, really like them. You know, they're definitely a cult favorite. But if you look at this animal, this boa is about 6 feet long. This is a young adult female. She's about 5 years old. But she's quite a bit thinner than, you know, for example, a true red tail would be at this length. The body build is kind of more like a reticulated or carpet python than most other types of boa constrictors. And they also, behaviorally, they're quite interesting. They don't like to sit still. They're always moving around, exploring. You know, quite an enjoyable animal to handle because of their interesting behaviors. They can be a little nippy, sometimes as babies, but my adults are all quite mellow. I think a lot of people might think that they're aggressive just because they move around more, but this is just because they're curious, they're looking around, not necessarily that they want to bite you or anything like that. But I will say they have a very aggressive feeding response, and they will launch themselves out of the cage to get to the rat or mouse that you offer them. In fact, it's almost like a rocket. They kind of shoot out. So you have to be prepared for that, and you really want to feed them with tongs or some kind of a tool rather than offering the food with your bare hands. Pearl Island is not a dwarf boa. These can get up to 7 or 8 feet long, and because of their more active lifestyle, they do best in a larger cage, like a 6 to 8 foot cage for an adult. So keep that in mind. But if you're looking for a really enjoyable, interesting boa that not a lot of people are keeping, I would definitely recommend checking out the Pearl Island Boa, Boa Imperador Sabogier. And I have a litter of Pearl Island Boas. It was born this year. These animals are ready to go. They're on my Flickr page. You can check them out at the link below the video description. And as I mentioned, pretty soon I'll have Tarahumara, Craw K, and Craw K Boa babies from 2024 available also on my Flickr page, the link below the video description. You can shoot me any questions that you might have via my email, which is under the video description, or you can write questions in the comments below. I appreciate your attention today. I hope you enjoyed looking at these great boas. Thanks for watching and enjoy your boas.